So welcome everybody to Alumni Weekend and this great reunion conference. We had 450 alumni, students, professors, recently admitted students, guests here today. So who will be coming in today. So it's just a tremendously successful event. We'll actually talk about some of the byproducts of that success in terms of anticipated overflow in a minute. And before I get started, I want to thank Tenny and Leslie and all the people that put this together. It wasn't even in my notes to thank them, completely impromptu. So they work extremely hard to pull all these together. And I think there's an event, what is it, every day or every week or every day somewhere on Earth, there's an event. The sun never sets on the Haas Empire. And Tenny and Leslie and crew pull them all together. So that's an amazing accomplishment, and there's one after the other. I'm Ezra Roizen. I'm the chair of the Alumni Council, graduate of the Berkeley Columbia program, and I'm really excited to welcome everyone here today. So a few things I have to do. I want to, before I introduce Dean Lyons, I want to run through a few logistics. And I apologize, I have to read some of this stuff because there's quite a few, given the sophistication of this event. So first off, the event today, path-bending leadership in the new economy, and really features what's a great cross-section of folks from both the academic or all of the academic community, the investing community, the business community, folks who are advisors. So we have both some sessions in here as well as breakout sessions. So it's a cross-section. It has breadth and depth. It's quite an interesting program that's been put together. We're going to have Dean Lyons speak in a moment. Following Dean Lyons, we have Larry Marcus, a friend of mine, who is, and Dean Lyons is a friend of mine too, who's a prolific investor. He's going to introduce Tim Westergren, the founder of Pandora. We have Ken Rosen speaking. Later on, we have sort of back-to-back thought leaders. So this is also a really interesting event in that the alumni team expanded the scope of these events from just reaching back to the 25th anniversary all the way back to the 50th anniversary. So this is the first time that Haas has actually reached all the way back to folks from 50 years ago. So how many of you from 50 years ago? Okay, well, we reached back. They had the opportunity. They're probably 49. We won't go any further. But but it's a much broader event. Those guys tend to get up a little later. Okay, so before I introduce Dean Lyons, a couple logistical things. Lunch, there will be lunch. And so you can get that in the courtyard. There's going to be box lunches, drinks at 12:30 to 1:30. We have several information tables out here that we want people to check out. A couple of them are research studies. So you can leave most of your clothes on. They're really not a overly intrusive process. But seriously, we do have some research studies we want you guys to participate in if you can. We have several sessions today. So we have the main sessions that will be held in the auditorium. We have the new core interactive classroom. We have the Scheidt 230 up on the fourth floor Wells Fargo room. So make sure you know where the session is that you're going to be participating in. There's also anticipation that some of these sessions, given the 450 folks, are going to be some of them might be a little oversubscribed. So there's been some preparations made for if there's overflow issues. We're also going to be taping these, and the videos will be online in 2 weeks. So if you do ask a question, try to make sure you have the microphone, because we want to make sure your questions are captured along with the answers so that we have everything captured on the tape. There's also a live mobile site for share photos and tweets, and that's at #HaasReunion. Also, if you're highly enabled, check in on any of your check-in services, tweet, Facebook. We want to get the word out. We have a big thing, actually, that we instituted in the Haas Alumni Network called Micro Networks. We're big fans of trying to get the alumni to reach out through their own micro networks to spread the Haas word. So we've been really pioneering for the last several years the use of social media, and we're seeing a lot of great benefits of that we could talk about later. But really, if you can, it'd be great if you could spread the word out about the event and that you're here, and that continue your ambassadorship for the school. We also have on the tone of social media, we have Rob Willie. Rob, where are you? Rob is here as our live blogger, live tweeter. He is basically bringing this event out to the information superhighway in real time. So Godspeed. If you have anything you want to share with him, feel free to share with him as well. And Rob, thank you for doing that. We're launching a new website feature this weekend in conjunction with the launch of an updated alumni website called 50 Words. So make sure to, there's an info table about that. Join the conversation. We'd love to get your thoughts on 50 Words. And then the alumni relations staff is available all day at the registration desk if you want to chat about other alumni matters. And if you can, either turn up all the way or turn off your cell phones. I got to go one way or the other. You got to be fully obtrusive, which is going to create a little energy, or turn that bad boy off. Tenny, anything I forgot? Did I get everything? Okay, good. So now I've introduced Dean Lyons. I'm sure many of you have met Dean Lyons and have seen at least indirectly the work he's been doing at Haas. But I have had the last 2 years. I'm actually in the waning days of my chairmanship and am rolling off at the end of the school year. But I've had a great opportunity to see Dean Lyons over the last couple of years at work in the school. And I have some background, but I also want to give a couple of thoughts. So he joined Haas as the dean after 2 years as the chief learning officer at Goldman Sachs. He's a Haas alum. He was the acting dean beforehand, also a finance professor. He taught at Columbia Business School, where I also am a graduate. Go Lions. No one actually says that at Columbia, which is sort of funny. They always look at me sort of weird. He's also actually an accomplished musician. All three of your next three speakers are accomplished musicians, which I think is fascinating. Actually, Tim, I don't know if you are an accomplished musician, but I know Larry is. I know you're big in music. But Dean Lyons is a very accomplished musician. In fact, I believe it was it Warren Hellman, the introduction? Dean Lyons, at the last Haas Gala, prepared an entire song, an original score, just to introduce Warren Hellman, which was a stunning tour de force. I actually have my banjo now. But the main thing, I mean, all of these things are sort of specifics around the history of the man. But the real thing that Dean Lyons has done, and that I've observed and can testify to, has been to lead the school in an entirely new direction. He's put forward the 4 defining principles: question the status quo, confidence without attitude, students always, beyond yourself. All of those now are being spread, the DNA, through the curriculum. He has taken the school and put it on the grand stage. He's gotten all publications, The Economist, USA Today, everybody to sort of pay attention to Haas and see Haas as different. Haas has moved up in the rankings, but at the same time, not always guiding the school in a way that is about just moving up in the rankings. The rankings are sort of a bit of a drug, I think, for business schools, trying to be the number 1 or number 2 or number 3. And you have to sort of make a decision about how much you drive forward on the rankings based on other factors. And from backstage, you also see decisions that are made which aren't about optimizing, I won't go into those, but aren't about always optimizing for just the rankings. So it's a matter of actually building a great school and living up to the social mission of Haas and Berkeley, and being at least to some degree a public institution. So I want to, with that, introduce Dean Lyons. And Dean, please take over.
What does it all add up to? If you're a business school in this day and age, what does it all add up to? That's a really important question for us, right? We've been through a few-year period where lots of institutions are asking that question. We've been asking that question. My kids are 8 and 11. When I look at my kids, different things come to mind than what came to mind for my parents when they looked at me, and that's just one generation ago. That's just one generation ago. One of the things that comes to mind when I look at my kids, 8 and 11, is that we live in a world where a lot of things have been moving in pretty close to a straight line for the last 20 or 30 years. And in my kids' lifetime, they can't continue moving in a straight line. It isn't going to work. It's going to hit a wall in their lifetimes, if not my own. They're going to be around in 2080. Seems like a really long time. Our kids are going to be around in 2080. There's some things that have to happen between now and 2080, and they almost surely have to happen between now and 2050, which is when a lot of our business school graduates are going to retire. I'm going to call these unsustainabilities, but I want to recognize them right off the bat as enormous commercial opportunities. Enormous commercial opportunities. We had a group of students, these are people who had all been admitted. It's called Days at Haas. In this case, it was for our full-time MBA program, but they were here yesterday. And one of the things I was able to say to them is, what a great time to go to business school. Because the gap between doing well, and we want you to do really well, and doing good has never been smaller. What do I mean by unsustainabilities? What do I have in mind when I think about these enormous commercial opportunities? Well, you have a list in your mind, just as I have one in mine. I'll bet there's some overlap, but you would have other things in your mind. But let me mention healthcare expenditure, or public education, or energy use, or the economics of aging, or carbon, or access to safe water around the world, or obesity. You put your own item in there, right? These are enormous commercial opportunities, but these straight line extrapolations aren't going to work, and that's the theme of what I want to talk to you about. I want to start this conference by talking about paths that we need collectively to bend. We need to bend those paths. And as a business school, if we aren't working hard to put back path-bending leaders into this system, then what are we doing? Then what are we doing? Absolutely fundamental. Now, I can't stand up here and use a word like path-bending leader or entrepreneurial leader or innovative leader and not define it. It wouldn't be fair. You would hold me to that. We would hold our students to that. That's part of what we've been doing. It's always helpful to look forward, start with the future, and work backwards. So if path bending is what we must have, let me personalize this a little bit. What if your kids in their lifetime might not have ready access to health care or safe water or a pension or education? Your kids and my kids, my guess is they're going to have access, but a lot of people won't. That's part of what this path bending is about. So when we think about what are we going to do? Not what are we going to talk about. What are we going to do? Here are three things that we've been thinking about, right? To get concrete. We've been thinking about our curriculum. We've been thinking about our culture. What are the norms and values that we stand by that define us as a school? And we've been thinking about the students. Who do we admit? If somebody said, your job is to put as many path-bending leaders into that pool of human capital that collectively we're going to all have to rely on for the next 20, 30, 40 years, how would you do it? Now, we don't want to over-specialize the school because guess what? You want to be a path-bending leader? Sorry, but you're going to need to know some finance, and you're going to need to know some accounting, and you're going to need to know the strategy and the marketing. We're not letting go of the fundamentals, I promise you. The marketplace needs people who can think in disciplined ways, who know the tools, who can get it done. Because there's a lot of everyday getting it done that has to happen. I do get that. But imagine if we could put all of that together with a mindset, an aspiration, a perspective of these larger outcomes that aren't discretionary. We must achieve them. They are genuinely, many of these areas, unsustainable, at least as they've been evolving over the last 20 years. Let me say a few things about those three areas. Then I'll offer a few questions. Curriculum. I said curriculum, culture, admissions. Those are the three areas. What are we going to do? Curriculum. One of the things we asked ourselves is what you've been asking yourselves and what you've been doing in a lot of your firms. What's the competency model? What's the skill set? What are the things we're going to go after? What are the things we're going to prioritize? So we thought hard about that question. Guess what? If I wrote down a list of competencies for path-bending leaders that I got out of some top 10 bestseller list on innovation, and I handed it to our faculty, they would spit it out. They would spit it out. If it doesn't have intellectual heft, if it's not grounded in the social sciences, that's why our faculty is so great. It's like, we're going to bring the discipline. We want to know there's something more than a fad here. So the first criterion for any capability that went on that list was intellectual heft, groundedness in the social sciences. And that's a really good thing. But it also, this is the second criterion, recruiters had to look at the list and say, I want that. No recruiter looks at the whole list and says, that's exactly my list. But everybody looks at the list and says, if you can do these 3, 4 things, I want them. I want as many of them as you can produce. Let me give you a few examples of what's on the list. I'll motivate the first one with a customer insight. I don't think I've heard anything more than the following from the senior executives that I've been talking to since I've been dean, which is 3 years. People say to me, Rich, we will always need problem solvers. That's a given. We will always need problem solvers. Business schools are good at producing them. But what I don't have enough of, I don't have enough of people who can think in a more disciplined way further upstream, at the problem finding and problem framing stages. People who can think about a problem and state the problem, who can actually take 2 hours out of the transaction flow that defines all of our lives and write down 2 sentences that state the problem. People who can say, now what does this problem or challenge or opportunity look like through a systems thinking lens? What does it look like through a design thinking lens, etc.? There's skill set. So one of these capabilities is called problem framing. We have a brand new required course in our MBA program on problem finding and problem framing. How do you do that? Problem framers are really valuable. It's a terribly important habit of mind for getting the big things done. Problem framing. Here's a second one, experimentation. Experimentation. 8 months ago or so, at this very table, we had a group from Google talking to us about innovating at scale. That was the title of the talk, Innovating at Scale. It was put together by John Hankey, one of our alums. He started Keyhole. Keyhole became Google Earth. He was an entrepreneur. Google bought the company. Now he works at Google, and he brought a bunch of Google folks here. Innovating at scale, big company. You know, Google's more than 30,000 people today. I'm oversimplifying, but here's one of the messages I heard at that table. People said, you and I will go out and have lunch. We'll come up with an idea. We'll spend 2 nights coding the idea. Then we will run an experiment. We will do it on the web. We will instrument that experiment. We will make the code available to customers or a subset of customers. But we instrument it so that we learn as much as possible. Instrument, a word that they used. We take it down in 2 weeks. We look at the data. Typically, we kill it. If there's something interesting, we iterate. This is what the menu of Google products looks like. And that's way oversimplified. But the notion of experimentation, when I ask my faculty, our faculty, do you think we can get our students, our graduates, to be better at experimental design? They say, that's what we do. That's what we do. That's what we know how to do. And in the popular press, you're seeing a lot of this stuff all over the place as well. New book called Little Bets. Think big, experiment small, fail fast. We've all heard this stuff. How do you do it? Experimental design is something our faculty know how to do. Here's a third capability that's in this model. Influence without authority. Influence without authority. You know, as organizations become more and more distributed, less and less command and control oriented, in almost every modern organization these days, if you're getting things done by using your authority, you're not getting this done as well as you probably could. How often do you get to talk to somebody who works for you and say, have you looked at the organization chart recently? That box, that's me. This box is you. Just do it, okay? Don't get to do that very often. But influence without authority or beyond authority. So how do you do that? How do we teach that? There's a branch of sociology called social network theory. This is a really important set of tools for thinking about how to do this. There's a lot of stuff on presentation theory that we're integrating into our classes. Okay, I'm going to stop there. But the notion is, show me the model. Show me the discipline. Show me the market value. But let's shoot for something. What's the destination? If we can play a lead role in putting more path-bending leaders in this system, I think we create a lot of value. We'll create a lot of wealth. And we will create a place where society can thrive for at least our kids' lifetime. Absolutely fundamental stuff. Let me talk about the culture very quickly. So Ezra already talked a little bit about our writing down those defining principles. Many of you have heard me talk about those before. Question the status quo. That's not Berkeley, I don't know what is, right? That's a terribly important habit of mind as well. Right? We've all worked with people where, you're working with somebody, it's like, the first thing that comes to his mind is, there's got to be a better way to do this. And then you work with people, it's like, have you ever had that thought? Have you ever thought there's a better way, could be a better way to do this? I want to work with the former. And so does almost everybody else. As long as they're not too disruptive in meetings. But that, it's about how we think about the world. Confidence without attitude. Confidence without attitude starts with confidence. We want the strivers. We want the strivers. We want the big aspirations. We're not dialing that down at all. But it can come with humility. It doesn't have to come with arrogance. And we think that's a really important leadership trait going forward. Students always. Paulo Tellini, one of our alums, CEO of Intel, he spoke at our orientation about a year ago when we were putting a lot of this stuff together. And he said, Rich, at Intel we see a lot of graduates from business schools, and there are just too many of them that come in thinking, I've learned all I need to learn. I'm done. I'm credentialed. I'm stamped. He said, we hate that. Right? So students always isn't just, I read more books than you do. Right? A lot of it has to do with how we as adults interact with one another. It's like the old saying in the tech industry, the network is the computer. It's the links between people. Those are the things that drive our learning and development as adults. Students always is really a very important part of that. And beyond yourself, Berkeley's DNA is about service to the public. What I usually say to the students, because it is helpful to be practical, we're a business school, we need to be practical. I will usually say, okay, how many of you have ever worked in an organization where somebody 1 or 2 levels above you did something in his or her best interest that wasn't in the best interest of the organization? Did you notice? Did anybody not notice? Are you going to forget that? Are these really the people you think that are going to be the leaders of organizations? A naive, self-interested approach to one's career is, in fact, not a very effective approach to one's career. At least having a sense of stewardship for the organization around you is an absolutely necessary condition. And of course, a good deal wider circle than that is the way most everybody who comes through this institution thinks about the world. So let's get concrete about the curriculum. Let's get concrete about the culture. Let's drive the culture through everything we do. The most satisfying for me, one of the most satisfying things that has happened to me over the last year, one of our alums might be in this room. I'll tell the story anyways. I got a letter, a handwritten letter, one page. It said, reading about the strategic plan and the culture, taking a stand on culture, taking a stand on norms and values. It's the right time to do that. It's the right time to do that in the right way, i.e. with our words, not with someone else's. And he wrote them out one by one, questioned the status quo, etc. And then he said, question the status quo. Boy, if that's not Berkeley, I don't know what is. Essentially, that's what he wrote, he in this case. And he said, boy, when I was here at Berkeley, this was an alum, that was just true in spades. And then he wrote, confidence without attitude. We had that too when I was here, and that's the most important one in my mind. He said, congratulations to the community for taking a stand. And then he signed it. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want, but he lives on the East Bay. His name is Paul. It's Paul M. But the important thing is what came after Paul M. BS 1950. He was here 60 years ago, and this stuff rang out as if it was yesterday. We set out to codify a culture that's been around here forever. We didn't set out to create something that wasn't here. And then admissions, I'll just toss in one quick comment on admissions. Here's something that does keep me up at night as a macro phenomenon. Business schools have gotten so hard to get into. I'll speak for the industry now. De facto, we have a no stumbles policy in admission. It's like, you got a C? I've got 15 people ahead of you that never got a C. You have a gap in your work experience? You took some time off? Okay. We do have to think hard about somebody who's, for example, 27 getting into graduate school, or even 19 or 20 getting into our undergraduate program, that's never taken a personal risk, that's never really gone out on a limb. Because by the time you're 27, if you are not taking some personal and developmental risks, you're probably, you may never. And those may not be the path-bending leaders we're going to need. I mean, if this is really important, then we need to think about, obviously, who we're letting in. Okay, so that's in a nutshell some of the things that we've been thinking about. I think that's, it's like the difference between adaptation and innovation. Adaptive systems like natural selection, they respond to changes in the external environment, but they do not anticipate them. Innovation is about anticipation, looking forward. We can see this coming. We can see this coming. Are we going to lead? Is our Berkeley and our Haas going to lead? This is exciting. Let me take a couple of questions, and then we will turn it over to our next speaker. Who's got a question? Please, sir. Sure. So the question is influence without authority, which is one of the skills that I talked about, right? And so part of when we think about how, let me frame it in terms of change management, right? Many of us have heard about that. You're in an organization and you want a big change to happen. And you say, what is change management? The CEO just says, we're doing it, right? Never. It won't happen. Somebody said to me that the effectiveness of a decision, E, equals Q times A. E equals effectiveness equals the quality of the decision times its acceptance. We think a lot about the quality of the decision. Where's the model? Where are the analytics? Have you gone through the data? But if people don't accept the decision, if the change management, if you haven't thought hard about what drives change through an organization, and usually that's influence without authority, you're not going to get the A right. And it's Q times A. If A is 0, then E is 0. So helping the students think about this, so I'm just using one example. You could say change management is something we want to think deeply about. I mentioned earlier this idea of social network theory. So one of the ideas in social networks is it's not just how big your network is, but it's the quality of the network. It's like, of course, I get that. But how do you define quality? So just as one operational way to make it tangible, you could say, how many strong relationships do I have in an organization? Suppose they're N. And then you could ask, how many of those strong relationships are within my division? And how many are in other divisions? For a lot of people, it's within division. All the strong relationships are within division. But people have done a lot of research. This is like, sometimes they use an EI index, external, internal index. Those that have strong relationships that are external to their work unit are able to get things done more often than those that are almost purely internal. I realize I've just scratched the surface, and it's a really important area, but it's one of those I think we all realize, right? Whatever that thing is, influence without authority, it's an important thing. And we're doing our very best to put skills and hard social science behind it. How about one more quick question, and then we'll get rolling. Please, sir.
How do you commercialize the disruptive media that tends to bend the thought process and the innovating process?
So how do we...
As long as it's not too disruptive.
Yes.
But certainly that will bend the straight line.
Well, that's important. Okay, so I used a metaphor, the question about sort of disruption and disruptive innovation, which is really about kind of phase change, right? Total qualitative change, as opposed to bending a path, right? I prefer the metaphor of bending a path because it is true that in certain industries, the game can change, right? 2 months later, it's like, bang, different path. The people who are on this path are basically done. We may not all know, right? So disruptive change happens. My own view, though, is that a whole lot more change actually happens as an accumulation of small changes. When you think about most industries and how they evolve, most of the value that's created in the modern economy, it is in fact the firms that are generating a richer flow of new ideas that are getting implemented. And if I just have a 2% richer flow than you do over a couple of years, I'm winning. I'm dominating. So my own view is that disruptive change, as a matter of social science, gets too much attention. It's really sexy to talk about. We live in an industry that is predicated on it, right? If you thought about venture and some of the things that we're all very, very close to. I mean, we have our great stories. Things disrupt. But when we're talking about healthcare expenditure, do we think there's going to be a single disruptive, innovation that's going to drive a bending of that path? No, it will be lots and lots of, maybe very major, but there will be lots of them. And same thing for if we thought about carbon, or if we thought about safe water, or many of the others. So that's why I really prefer this bending concept. But it's hard to bend things. It's very hard. I get to introduce our next speaker. I want to thank all of you for having come today, because this is an important day for us. Thank you for being here. Thank you. My pleasure here. So I get to introduce Larry Marcus, and he will be introducing our keynote speaker this morning. Larry is a graduate of Cal, a fellow alum. He's also a graduate of our MBA program. Larry Marcus serves as managing director at Walden Venture Capital. He is focused on sprout stage investing, capturing that value creation at the sprout stage. Larry has played a pivotal role in the development of Pandora. It has been, of course, a wild ride. Most of you have followed that industry and that firm. One of the first people to bet on that company and indeed on that strategy. Prior experience includes Robertson Stevens in the financial industry. in the computer retail services industry, also background at DigiDesign and general management. He's a musician, as Ezra mentioned, great love for music, serves on the nonprofit board of the Jazz School here in Berkeley. Terrific representative for our Haas School. He's a great role model for our community and really for our whole alumni association. And he is here today. I will turn it over to Larry, and I want to thank you for being here. Thank you, Larry.